Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Russo, and this is the KO Podcast, episode number 29. In this episode, I will be reviewing UFC Fight Night, Lewis vs. Spivak. Also, Bellator 290 went on this past weekend, and UFC 284 is this weekend. I will be previewing that card. Volkanovski looks to become double champ against Islam Makhachev. Very excited for that fight. Ring that bell. All right, and getting into this UFC Fight Night Lewis vs. Spivak card, let's get into the first fight of the card. It was a flyweight bout. We had Tatsuro Taira taking on Aguilar, and Tatsuro Taira gets the first round submission. He moves to 13-0. As I said last episode, definitely a flyweight prospect to keep your eye on. It looks like he's going to be, moving up pretty quickly. I believe he's had 2 finishes in his 2 UFC fights. So Taira, big prospect to watch out for. Moving on, we had a middleweight bout. We had Park Jung-young taking on Dennis Tulin, and Park Jung-young gets the first round submission. Moving on, we had 4 fights that were part of Road to UFC. So all of these winners were granted a UFC contract. The first fight was a flyweight bout. We had Choi Sung-guk taking on Park Young-sung, and Young-sung gets the submission victory in the 3rd round, so he is awarded a UFC contract. Moving on, we had a bantamweight bout. We had Toshomi Kazama taking on Raina Nakamura, and Nakamura gets the finish just 33 seconds into the first round. What a finish that was. What a way to make a statement and earn your UFC contract. So Nakamura gets that finish. Moving on, we had a featherweight bout. We had Lee Jung-young taking on Yi Za, and Lee Jung-young gets the decision victory. Moving on, we had a lightweight bout. We had Zeka Surya taking on Ansul Jubli, and Ansul Jubli gets the finish in the 2nd round. Now let's move on to the main card. In the first bout, we had a welterweight matchup. We had Yasuku Kinoshita taking on Adam Fugit, and Adam Fugit gets the first round finish. Very impressive win by Adam Fugit. A lot of people were expecting big things in Kinoshita for his debut. It did not go his way, so Adam Fugit gets the big win. Moving on, we had a featherweight bout. We had Choi Do-ho taking on Kyle Nelson, and unfortunately this fight ended in a draw. So I forget which round it was, but the ref took a point away from Choi Do-ho because he thought that there was an illegal headbutt while Choi Do-ho was on top of Nelson. I didn't see a headbutt connect. It looked like he was just trying to get his hands free from Nelson, but in the moment maybe it looked like a headbutt. But while the replay was being shown, I didn't see Do-ho's head kind of clashing with Nelson's. So unfortunately, Choi Do-ho gets kind of screwed out of a decision win, I feel. So that goes to a draw. So unfortunate for Choi Do-ho. He was looking to fight for the first time since 2019 and get a win. Fortunately, that doesn't happen for him. Moving on, we had a heavyweight bout. We had Marcin Tybura taking on Blagory Imanov, and Tybura gets the decision victory. Moving on, in the co-main event, we had a light heavyweight bout. We had Jung Da-on taking on Devin Clark, and Devin Clark gets the decision victory. Now, moving on to the main event of the evening, we had a heavyweight bout. We had Derek Lewis taking on Sergey Spivak, and unfortunately, Sergey Spivak's grappling was just way too much for Derek Lewis. Spivak ragdolled him, just like he's done to all his other opponents. A lot of hip tosses. He took down Lewis like two times, and Lewis, worked to get back up to his feet. He dropped him down a third time, and Lewis was not really, it seemed like he got kind of tired a little bit from getting up, getting knocked back down. It is very hard to try to continue to get up when you've just been ragdolled back to the ground. And Spivak gets a submission locked in, and Derek Lewis taps to a first round submission. This is kind of how I envisioned the fight going. Obviously my heart wanted to go with Derek Lewis with a knockout victory, but it just didn't seem that this was going to happen. While he was going against Spivak. Spivak just too good of a grappler, and he's really good with submissions on the ground. So Lewis was in trouble once he hit the ground, unfortunately. Lewis didn't really get any of his punches to really connect cleanly with Spivak to even hurt him a little bit. I don't think Spivak really caught a clean punch in this fight. He just went right to the grappling, which is the smart thing to do. So that was UFC Fight Night. That was this card. And while this card was going on, we had Bellator 290. So let's get to that card. All right, starting off Bellator 290, we had the former Bellator bantamweight champ Darren Caldwell going up against Nikita Mikhailov. I believe that's how you say his last name. And Nikita Mikhailov gets the decision victory. I don't know what the judges were really looking at this one. Darren Caldwell had, the top position on the ground for most of the fight, and I understand, maybe he should have inflicted more damage. Maybe he should have fished for more submission attempts, But, I don't know how you can give a guy a round who's spent most of the round on his back. Nikita Mikhailov, he was on his back for most of this fight, if I'm remembering correctly. And I don't know how you can give a guy a round when he's on his back, and Caldwell was controlling him. And I don't know. That was a little surprising to me. Caldwell looked surprised when the decision was read. Nikita looked surprised when the decision was read. So not a good decision in my eyes. But something even more interesting happened after this horrible decision. We go to the next fight. This is a women's flyweight bout. We had Alejandra Lara taking on Diana Askugov. I believe I said her name correctly. I apologize if I butchered it. But something interesting happened right before this fight. Let me just give you some backstory quick. So, this event was obviously in California. So, CSAC, California State Athletic Commission, they were overseeing this event. So, what that means is they assigned the refs and the judges. And so, before this fight between these two women started, there was no third judge, which is very interesting because I don't understand where they went. Their job is to sit there, right? So I'm gonna chalk this up as a hashtag bathroomgate. So let's see which judge was missing. So the three judges that were scoring this contest were Hadi Muhammad Ali, Jonathan Marglano, and Rafael Davis. So I wonder which one was missing. Who was that third judge that was not there? Did they go to the bathroom? Because that's the only way I can see them walking away from the only place they're supposed to be sitting. That's really embarrassing for the California State Athletic Commission. What the hell is that? Why are you having judges leave in the middle of a active card? Bellator, they were getting these fights out quick, so I don't understand where that judge thought that they were going. It's embarrassing. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. And I don't even think they're going to be reprimanded because judges, there's no consequence to anything that they do. Also, I didn't agree with the decision on this fight. After all of hashtag bathroomgate happened, they get this fight going. Really entertaining fight between these two women. And Diana Afskurov gets the decision victory. It was a split decision. I thought Alejandra Lara did enough to get the decision victory, but the judges thought otherwise. CSAC, shame on you. Get your judges in order. have some professionalism and not have them leave whenever they want to while there's fighters walking in the cage. You could probably avoid this next time. But yeah, so hashtag Bathroomgate at Bellator 290. Didn't expect to talk about that, but more finishes on this prelim that I do want to talk about. Chris Gonzalez gets a nasty TKO finish, and unfortunately Steve Mowry versus Ali Zaviv ends in a draw. Steve Mowry had an amazing second round. They ruled it at 10-8, and then Aziv, I believe that's how you say his last name, came back in the third, and judges scored the third round as a 10-8. So it ends in a draw, unfortunately. But Steve Mowry, I know that you're going to be back and better than ever for your next fight. Moving on, more prelims. We had Lorenzo Larkin with a crazy elbow KO finish. Muhammad Berkamov face first into the canvas, out cold from a nasty elbow by Lorenzo Larkin. That was one of the best finishes on this card. We had Naaman Gracie getting a decision win over Dante Scrullo. We also had Jalen Bates getting a decision win over Jornel Lugo. Now, moving on to this 3-fight main card. It was on CBS, and the ratings that I read, it came out, and they had over 1 million viewers on this card. That is great to hear. I hope CBS puts more Bellator cards on cable TV, on their main channel, expose more people to MMA. I love it. The first fight of this main card was an absolute banger. It lived up to the hype. Sabah Hamasi taking on Brandon Ward in a welterweight bout. Brandon Ward gets the TKO in the second round, I believe. Insane head kick leads to the finish on Hamasi. Brandon Ward now is probably going to have a number next to his name in this welterweight division. After the fight, he calls out Dalton Rosa. If he can't get a title shot at welterweight, he wants to move up to middleweight and fight Dalton Rosa. I am not opposed to that fight. That is a good fight. Moving on to the co-main event, we had the champion Johnny Eblen taking on Antiko Oli Tokov, I believe. I probably butchered his first name. I apologize. But Johnny Eblen gets the decision victory over Tokov, and he remains Bellator middleweight champion. Another really good performance by Johnny Eblen. He is solidifying himself as one of the better middleweights in the world. Now, moving on to the main event, we had the Bellator heavyweight champion Ryan Bader taking on the legend, the last emperor, Fedor Emelianenko. And, unfortunately, this fight went just how I expected it to go. Bader finishes Fedor in the first round. Fedor just doesn't have, the chin to really take a lot of damage. So, Fedor was really popping in and out of the pocket. He didn't want to stand inside the pocket. So he was, trying to utilize his speed, which he's still very speedy for his age. He's 46. So credit to him for still even performing at this age. But yeah, he was trying to, quickly engage with Bader. He was, really not trying to stay in the pocket, like I said. And, he was exiting the pocket with his head kind of down, I believe. And Bader kind of, gut him in the back of the ear. That's what sat down Fedor. And then, Ryan Bader just ground and pound until the ref, kind of had no choice but to stop it. Fedor was not, going to get up. He was going to get, knocked out or hurt even more than what he was. So Herb Dean, steps in, calls the fight. Ryan Bader retains the heavyweight championship. But after the fight, what a ceremony Bellator put on for Fedor. A bunch of legends came into the cage and, congratulated him on a great career. He hugged all of them, had some conversation with them, Chuck Liddell, Royce Gracie, Rampage Jackson, just so many legends of MMA were in that ring. Randy Couture was there. Some guys he fought, some guys he didn't. But it was all respect. Ryan Bader was, really gracious with his win. He even took a picture with the whole group, with Fedor. So, they sent him off, properly. Unfortunately, he couldn't walk away, with the belt, walk away in the sunset with a win. But in this sport of MMA and even boxing, most of these legends, don't go out on top, unfortunately. That's just kind of how this sport is. It's very brutal, and there's a lot of highs in this sport for the athletes, but there's a lot of lows, and big shout out to Fedor. I hope he has a happy retirement. He put the sport of MMA, he raised it up so much with his 10 years of being undefeated, going to Strikeforce, obviously Pride before that. What a career, just again, congratulations on an amazing career, Fedor Emelianenko. Now, let's go to this weekend's card. All right, UFC 284 is from Australia. Man, what a event this is going to be. Really excited to see how the crowd reacts to this card, especially Volkanovski in the main event. Looking at the prelims, some matchups that stick out to me. Let's go over them. A women's strawweight bout. We have Loma Lukumbumi, I believe that's how you say her last name. I apologize if I butchered it. Going against Ellis Reed. We have featherweight bout Jack Jenkins taking on Don Shannis, and Jack Jenkins is making his UFC debut. Back in September, he won a UFC contract on the Dana White's Contender Series. This is his home country, Australia, so he is definitely looking to get a win there. Moving on, we have a lightweight bout. We have Jamie Malarkey taking on Francisco Prado. Jamie Malarkey coming off of a split decision victory over Michael Johnson. That was definitely the biggest win of his career. And another fight on the prelims that I want to talk about is a light heavyweight bout. We got Tyson Pedro taking on Modestas Bukakas. I really butchered his last name. I apologize. But yeah, Tyson Pedro, a big finisher. So look for this fight to be pretty quick. Moving on now to the main card. Opening up the card, we got a light heavyweight bout. We got Jimmy Crute taking on Alonzo Menefield. Jimmy Crute coming off of 2 losses, is looking to get back into that win column. He's still only 26, so there is definitely still a path for him to get, the momentum that he had back. And Alonzo Menefield is coming off of a 2-fight win streak, I believe. So definitely a tale of kind of 2 streaks going on right now. Interested to see kind of how both of these guys kind of approach this fight with, different streaks going on. Moving on, we got a heavyweight bout. We got Justin Tafa taking on Parker Porter. This is a heavyweight fight. Yeah, that's really all I can say about this fight. Moving on, we got a welterweight bout. We got Jack Della Molina taking on Randy Brown. This is a really good fight. Jack Della Molina, has such crisp boxing, and his boxing combinations are insane. And then you got Randy Brown, who's just really good all around everywhere. He's got really good submission. He's lengthy, so that really helps him in his stand-up game. He's got long arms, long legs. Randy Brown has a lot of weapons to win this fight. But Jack Della Molina, his boxing, man, is just crisp. If you haven't seen him fight, he's fought, I think, 2 times in the UFC. Definitely go watch some of his past fights, and you'll just know what I'm talking about. Moving on, we got a featherweight co-main event. This is for the interim UFC featherweight championship. We have Yair Rodriguez taking on Josh Emmett. Obviously, this is a number one contender fight for the UFC featherweight championship whenever Volkanovski decides to defend it. But they just decided to put a interim belt on the line to, I guess, make the stakes a little higher. But, the meaning is still the same. This is a number one contenders fight. Yair Rodriguez, in his last fight, it was against Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega has a shoulder injury. That's how Yair Rodriguez wins. Yeah, it was a weird ending. And, before that, Yair Rodriguez hadn't fought since Jeremy Stevens back in 2019. So it's a little bit interesting that Yair Rodriguez is going to get this shot at an interim belt. I know he has the talent, obviously, and I think that's why they're giving him this shot. He's got just so many crazy weapons that he can pull out of his arsenal. He's got switch kicks. You never know what Yair Rodriguez is going to do. He's very entertaining. It's just, his last fight ended a little weirdly. And then we have Josh Emmett on the other side. He won his last fight by decision against Calvin Kattar. I thought Calvin Kattar won that fight, but nevertheless, Josh Emmett, he's gets this opportunity. His right hook is money. He's knocked out so many people cold with that right hook. Josh Emmett, He likes to kind of sit in that pocket and exchange heavy shots. With Ricardo Lamos, if you've ever seen that KO, they were trading in that pocket, and he just shut the lights off of Ricardo Lamos. That is a very insane knockout. So Josh Emmett, it seems like, he likes to dig his heels in and really put a lot of power onto his shots. Yair Rodriguez is more of a fluent moving kind of fighter. So it's going to be interesting to see how Josh Emmett kind of combats that movement. Is he going to throw leg kicks to try to stop Yair Rodriguez's movement? There's a lot of things to consider in this matchup. But if I had to take someone, I'm going to take Yair Rodriguez. Like I said, he just has, I feel, so many more tools to win this fight with just all of the unexpected strikes and kicks that he throws. I feel like he's going to catch Emmett kind of in a spot where he's not, ready to maybe take a strike or something, and he might just get caught and get hurt bad. Moving on now to the main event of the evening, we have the light heavyweight champion Islam Makhachev defending his belt against featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski. Obviously, Alexander Volkanovski is going for double champ status, and this is the perfect opportunity for him to get it in his home country of Australia. That would be a career-defining moment for him, and that would really put his his status just so much more higher up. It is so hard to be a simultaneous two-division champion. Not many people have done it. Obviously, Conor McGregor was the first to do it. But Islam Makhachev, I feel like he has the size advantage, but really Volkanovski has never had the size advantage. Even at featherweight, he's been the smaller guy. I believe he's 5'6", so definitely undersized for featherweight, and he's moving up to lightweight. And Makhachev is big, he's strong, he's like a grizzly bear. When he gets a hold of you, he does not let go, and he just squeezes you and tries to get you into chokes. But his stand-up, Islam Makhachev, is very, very underrated. He dropped Charles Oliveira, remember, which led to the submission that he ended up getting on Oliveira. So, Islam Makhachev, he doesn't use his striking as much, but if you want to trade with Makhachev, he's not going to back down, and he's going to swing, and his technique is very good with his punches. Everything is tight, and everything is thrown with a purpose, and I believe that's why he's got pretty good stand-up, even though he doesn't use it that much. His technique is just insane. And with Alexander Volkanovski, Again, Brian Ortega had him in deep trouble with 2 submissions, and he survived both. So that is something to really look out for here. Volkanovski is a dog. He is not going to give up at any point in this fight. He's going to fight through every submission. Man, this is a tough fight to pick a winner in. I mean, both of these guys have 1 loss each, so these guys don't lose very often. I'm going to go with Alexander Volkanovski in this fight. I just feel like he's destined to become a second champ. I have a gut feeling that he just belongs getting the second belt. The moment feels right for him. He's in his home country, fighting there. Again, such a special moment for a fighter, especially an international fighter who doesn't get to fight home a bunch, and he hasn't probably fought in Australia in a long time. I feel like that crowd, that energy that he's going to have is really going to push him over the edge. I think Volkanovski is going to shock a lot of people, and he's going to walk away as a double champ. And now let's talk about some news that dropped earlier this week about Season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter. If you haven't heard by now, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler are going to be the coaches on Season 31 of The Ultimate Fighter. And, the season is going to have some guys who were cut by the UFC in the past. They're going to be returning, and the other group are going to be prospects. So that's going to be very interesting to see how they kind of mesh with these guys who have been in the UFC but got cut, and then these prospects who have never, been in the UFC before. So it's going to be interesting to see if that UFC experience by those former UFC fighters is going to show during the show. Obviously, both of these guys are going to be wildly entertaining during the show. Michael Chandler is going to have motivational speeches. A lot of those. Conor McGregor is probably going to trash talk Chandler. Chandler's not a bad trash talker himself, so it's going to be a really entertaining season. Looking forward to it. I tried to watch the Volkanovski and Ortega season, watched a couple episodes of that, watched like a half episode of last year's Ultimate Fighter, but this season, it is Conor McGregor. It's going to get big ratings, and I just hope that a lot of eyes are on this, because the Ultimate Fighter is a great show, but it just doesn't keep my attention over the course of the weeks and stuff, and then eventually they the finalists will pop up on a card, and then that's when you're like, oh, he made it through or she made it through. But with McGregor and Chandler here, these are two pretty big stars in the company. I think they're gonna have a lot of eyeballs on each episode of this season. So it's going to be insane. McGregor, he's already coached The Ultimate Fighter against Uriah Faber, so he has that experience already. So again, very, very excited to see these two face off. How the fight is going to go. I feel Conor, has the striking advantage in this fight. It's just a matter, is Michael Chandler going to use his wrestling? If he uses his wrestling, against McGregor, he definitely has just a much better chance of beating McGregor than if he's just going to stand with McGregor. I mean, you don't want to stand with Conor. I think that's a known fact, and I think he has way better wrestling than McGregor. And even if he implements the wrestling between striking, try to get McGregor on the ground, try to get his back on the ground to just try to tire him out. And that's probably his best path, but, that fight is going to probably be in September or something like that, so that's a ways away, so I'll break down that fight when it is, finalized and announced. Obviously, they don't even have a date for that fight yet, or a location, I believe, so it's in the early process of getting that, fight in order, but we do know that they'll be coaching against each other on the season. And that is going to do it for this episode of the KO podcast. To stay up to date with the podcast, the Twitter is type in the KO podcast with Tyler Russo. The Instagram is the KO _podcast. And the YouTube channel is the KO Podcast with Tyler Russo. I'm most active on Twitter, so definitely give me a follow on there. Stay safe, stay blessed. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. Bye-bye.